huge kingdom principle. So, connecting it back to last week's budgeting conversation, which speaking of, was everyone able to get the budgeting app and start using that? It's an app. Oh, no, it's an app I made that just analyzes all your statements. It makes it a whole lot easier. Have you guys been using it? You guys find value in it? Yeah. Yep. That's good. Good enough. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy because I don't know if it was like word of mouth or what, but I'm averaging like 213 downloads a day on the app. But yeah, so I don't know how, but it's getting around. Yeah. Yeah. No, I made it free on purpose. Yeah, I made it 100% free on purpose. Yeah. No, I got you. I got you. Hey, if it works, it works. You know. Yeah, see, I'm lazy by nature, so if I'm gonna have something automate, I'm gonna have something automate. So, Pampers, probably. I don't even think my parents probably didn't get name brand, so it probably wasn't even Pampers. But say what? Get a mic. Are we live? Oh, sorry, online folks. Yeah. Yeah. No, I didn't know we were live yet, cause I. Well, well. Uh huh. Oh no, I already got a mic up here for it. Yeah, I got one. I just didn't think we were live yet, so I didn't start passing it around. All right. So from last week's on the budgeting conversation, budgeting and investing. Budgeting tells your money where to go, but investing tells your money how to grow. So one without the other leaves you in a pretty tough predicament, right? Because if you have the perfect budget but no investing in your budget, then you're still going to retire broke, okay? And if you're investing without having a budget in place, then you're going to misuse your increase whenever it comes, okay? So they go hand in hand. You can't have a budget without investing, and you really can't have investing without having a proper budget in place, okay? So starting into this, we're going to cover 5 main principles with investing. Number 5 is the actual action stage, right? I don't want to just come up here and talk about, worldly investing strategies without first getting to the word. So we're going to start with Luke 19:12 through 26. This is another parable that Jesus spoke about investing. In the teachings that we've covered the last couple of weeks, we were looking at the parables of Matthew 25, talking about the talents, right? That is the primary or go-to parable with investing, is all about the talents. This parable is also about investing, but it tells a slightly different story than the parable of the talents. I'm going to cover the differences and why this one's a little different. They were told at 2 different completely spots in time, right? So it's not like this is Luke's version of the parable in Matthew. These are 2 completely different parables that Jesus spoke at different times. They're going to sound really similar, but they are not the same. Because you know how every gospel kind of has like their own version of what Jesus was saying and doing and stuff? That's not what's going on here. These are 2 completely distinct situations, okay? So, Matthew 19:12 through 26, once my computer loads. So, he said, a nobleman was called away to a distant empire to be crowned king, and then returned. Before he left, and then returned, sorry. Before he left, he called, and sorry, Flor, are you able to do the slides right now, or should I keep doing clicking? Okay. Verse 13. Before he left, he called together 10 of his servants and divided among them 10 pounds of silver, saying, invest this for me while I'm gone. So in all of the other translations, or most of the other translations, that 10 pounds of silver is actually translated as 10 minas. It's essentially equal to 3 months of wages at the time. So in common vernacular English, right, they translate it as silver, 10 pounds of silver. So, but they divided it equally among the 10. So each person got 1 pound of silver, or 1 minas. So if you ever do like your studies or you're hearing things, this is the parable of the minas, is what this one's referred to as. So, verse 14, but his people hated him and sent a delegation after him to say, we do not want him to be our king. After he was crowned king, he returned and called in the servants to whom he had given the money. He wanted to find out what their profits were. The first servant reported, 'Master, I invested your money and made 10 times the original amount.'" All right, that sounds pretty similar to the talents parable, right? I made 10x what you've given me, right? "Well done," verse 17. "Well done," the king exclaimed. "You are a good servant. You have been faithful with little that I entrusted to you, so you will be governor of 10 cities as your reward." So here you can see that there is a clear reward system for how you handle investing on this side of eternity, right? How you handle your finances has a direct impact to what God actually trusts you with and gives to you in eternity, right? Because Jesus is the Lord of Lords and the Kings of Kings. So we will be lords, we will be kings in eternity. Your kingdom or your reign in eternity is 100% dependent on how you handle what you're stewarding on this side, right? And primarily how you handle your investments, okay, on this side. So, verse 18. The next servant reported, "Master, I invested your money and made 5 times the original amount." Now remember, everyone was given 1 minas, 1 pound of silver. Everyone was given the exact same amount starting out. However, one of them was able to make 10x that amount. And then this one was able to make 5x that amount. In the parable of the talents, they were given different starting amounts. Okay, they were given different starting amounts, but they all 2x'd their starting amount. This one, they were given the exact same starting amount, and they were able to grow it exponentially based on how they handled it, right? So that is going to be the slight difference between the talents and the minas parable. The minas parable, it removes the, "Oh, well, I wasn't given the same at birth, so I can't perform the same." That's what this removes. This removes, no, everyone was given the exact same, right? It depends on how you do with that exact same that your reward will come, right? So verse 19, he says, "Well done," the king said, "you will be governor over 5 cities." So see, you can see that the amount of cities that you will be rewarded with to rule over is directly proportional to the amount of investing you're able to bring back in, okay? Now, the parable is specifically about money, okay? But obviously, you can extrapolate out to the entire Christian walk, right? So your reward will always be directly proportional to the amount of multiplication you're able to do in every single area of your life, okay? One problem that I find with Christianity is that's totally okay whenever you're talking about the amount of people you bring to Christ. Or it's okay to talk about the amount of faith you have in an area, or the amount of prayer you have, or your holiness, or your devotion. But as soon as you start talking about money, it's all, well, that's the prosperity gospel. No, it's not. It's all one and the same. Jesus spoke about money primarily. Money and business was his primary tooling for the parables. Okay, so you can't just strip away the primary tooling and be like, "Oh, well, he was talking about faith and faith alone." No, he wasn't. He wasn't. Because belief is what you internally, believe to be true, right? But faith is walking out that belief system, okay? So it's impossible to actually have faith if you're not actually doing anything, okay? And so this term investing, I didn't throw it on the board because I don't want to get too deep into it, but this term investing, if you read it in different translations, you might see it as called doing business. That doing business just means being active in the thing, okay? So if you're given finances, you need to be active in the finances, okay? That's where the reward comes. If you're given a talent, not like the gold talent, but like a gift, right? If you're given a gift from God, you need to be active in the gift from God, okay? So verse 19, he said, "Well done," the king said, "you'll be governor over 5 cities." But the third servant, verse 20, the third servant came back brought back only the original amount of the money and said, "Master, I hid your money and kept it safe." That sounds just like the third servant in the parable of the talents, right? He said, I was scared, so I hid it, right? "I was afraid," verse 21, "I was afraid because you are a hard man to deal with. taking what isn't yours and harvesting crops you didn't plant. We're talking about God, remember? One man waters. Well, one man sows, one man waters, but it's God who gets the increase. Okay, so he set up everything to function a type of way. We just have to be the laborers to go out into the field and do the thing, right? But God's the one who always gets the harvest. It does sound like corporate America. It sure does. Yeah. But you'll work at corporate, but you don't want to work for God. Anyway, that's not the lesson. Yep. Verse 22. You wicked servant. The king roared. He's angry. You wicked servant. Remember, we talked about this in the parable of the talents. That wicked, it means you're so interwoven with sin, right? That's what wicked means. Like a wicker furniture, you're so interwoven with sin. Laziness is a sin, right? Laziness is a sin. Fear is also a sin, okay? Because God said, don't do that. And if you do that, you're actively disobeying God, right? You're missing the mark. You're supposed to have faith. Not fair. Anyway, so your own words condemn you. If you knew that I'm a man who takes what isn't mine and harvests crops I didn't plant, why didn't you deposit my money in the bank? At least I could have gotten some interest on it. It's the exact same thing he said to the third servant in the parable of the talents. At the very least, put it in the bank. Get your high yield saving interest. At the least, right? The smallest I should be given is at least like 2.3% increase. That's like your smallest high yield savings account, right? Like that's the least you should bring me, right? That's not what I'm asking for, but at least do that. Don't do nothing with it, right? Like the minimum. Then returning to the other, verse 24, then returning to the others standing nearby, the king ordered, take the money from this servant, the third servant who didn't do anything with it, take the money from this servant and give it to the one who has 10 pounds. But master, they said, he already has 10 pounds. Yeah, the king replied, and to those who use well what they are given, even more will be given. But from those who do nothing, even what little they have will be taken away. And then verse 27, and as for those enemies of mine who didn't want me to be their king, bring them in and execute them right here in front of me. So that's talking about the non-believers, right? So the non-believers are going to be, executed, right? Separation from God forever. But the believers are supposed to be the ones who are investing and multiplying and stewarding properly the things that they've been given, okay? I read through most of this. So as I mentioned earlier, the difference between this parable and the parable of the talents, right, is that in the parable of the minas, every single person was given the exact same amount. Okay, they were given the exact same starting amount. So why this matters is the excuse, I don't have enough to start investing, it doesn't hold up against this text at all, because everyone's given the exact same amount starting out. So God isn't waiting until you have a large sum before he expects your faithfulness in it. Okay? The starting amount was never the test and will never be part of the test. It's your willingness to put to work that which you do have. Okay, that is the test. Put to work what you do have. Literally, even if you can only invest $1 a week, do that. I see you thinking. I'm gonna come over here. Just for a second. We got a little bit of time, I think. Hopefully. Oh, maybe not. We got 30 minutes. Make it quick.
It's so funny you said that because I'll never forget when I first started out working. Remember my husband, I have 7 children. So we didn't have a lot of extra income. But 2 things that we did that I look back on at that time, I felt like, man, like we tithe. Yes, we gave our tithe. We always did that. And I had 401k coming out, but it wasn't very much. I know the company, they tell you do 6% because if your company matches, most of the time it's up to 6%. But I didn't have an extra 6% to come out of my check. At that time, I was only doing 1%. because that's all I could afford. But I was doing something. And eventually, that 1%, I was able to increase it a year or two later, and I went to 2%. But now, looking back, that was 13 years ago. And now that money has made some, well, it's up and down, but you know.
Right.
But when you said that a dollar, when you think about it, I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but it only takes, hear me out, people. If you go to like Tulsa Teachers Credit Union, it only takes $5, I believe. It used to be, it might have gone up a few dollars, to open up a savings account. And if you just go put in, like you said, $1, $2, whatever, and you just keep adding and letting that percentage, eventually it'll get up to a point where you can put in more, and then you can invest in other things. But it just dawned on me, you got to start somewhere, because if you don't start, you'll never start.
Right, yeah. And if you
And then
don't,
it creates a habit.
it sure does, yeah. Hopefully, after the steps we go through, you guys won't need to do a savings account. You'll just be able to start straight up investing. Because there's a couple tools here that even if you only got, they got so many tools for investing. One of them that we're going to cover is just like, it's just pennies at a time. But those pennies at a time add up. Quick, too, right? Quick. So, notice again in the latter verses the fearful servant, right? He didn't lose the money. He didn't steal the money. He didn't waste the money. He preserved it perfectly the exact same way he was given it, okay? But his sin was fear-driven inactivity. So he believed the master was harsh, and so he played it safe by doing nothing. But doing nothing was wicked. Doing nothing is wicked, right? So you can't have a fear of market volatility. You can't have a fear of I might lose it. You can't even have a fear of not understanding how the stock market works, okay? Especially in today's age. There's so many tools to understand the stock market. You can't have that fear. So none of those fears are biblically valid reasonings to leave money sitting stagnant. Because even the safest possible move was still expected over doing nothing. And the safest possible move is what Minister Katrina just said, and put it at least in a savings account, right? At the very least, do a savings account. So that was the first parable. We're going to look into the second parable of Mark 4, 26 through 29. Mark 4, 26 through 29. And he was saying, the kingdom of God is like a man who casts seed upon the soil. And he goes to bed at night and gets up by day, and the seed sprouts and grows. How? He himself does not know. So the farmer is just responsible for putting the seed in the ground. How does the ground plus water plus seed turn into something? The farmer doesn't know. The farmer doesn't even want to know. All he knows is that he planted it, he went to bed. The seed started doing something while he was sleeping. Okay? The soil produces crops by itself. First the blade, then the head, then the mature grain in the head. And you can see that I highlighted by itself. It means it's a word we're about to talk about. It's a really cool word. I hope you guys pay attention to that, because it's going to change your mindset on investing, okay? It's going to change your entire mindset on investing. The soil produced crops by itself, okay? The farmer planted the seed. The field is what does the work. The farmer does the initial work of finding a good fertile ground to plant seed into, okay? That's the work the farmer does. After the farmer plants the seed, the field does the remaining work, okay? And then verse 29, but when the crop permits, he immediately puts in the sickle because the harvest has come, okay? So the field is doing the work by itself, is what it said. And then the farmer's job, after the field has done what it's done, the farmer realizes that now it's time to harvest. Let me harvest it, okay? I can't get any more growth from this seed, so let me harvest what I've made, From that harvest, I now have new seed, a new multiplication of seed, right? Because you take one seed, one apple seed, you plant it in the ground, now you get an apple tree. That apple tree makes 15 to 20 bushels per year. A bushel is about 25 apples. Each one of those apples now has about anywhere from like 25 to 30 apple seeds in it, okay, that you can then go out and replant, okay? So the farmer harvests his crop, he now has new seed, and then he does the cycle again, okay? I'm talking about money, obviously, okay? So whenever you take your money, you find a good market to put it in, you then put your money in that market, you let the market do what the market does, which is make you money. Once that particular market has made its max amount of yield for that initial crop you put into it, pull that money out, do what you need to do with that money. It goes into your budget. 10% goes to God, and then the rest of it just fits into the budget, right? Part of that budget is reinvestment, okay? And then you reinvest into either that same field or a new field that you've plotted out, that you've researched, that you've looked into. Put it into a new field at this point, right? Or you can put it into the same field, okay? So now we're going to look at this word by itself. It is the Greek word automata. Automata. It's the Greek word automata. And if you're thinking that kind of looks like the word automatic, that's because it is. It is the word automatic, okay? It's built by two roots, auto, which means self, and then meo, to be ready or eager. So by itself, it is ready and eager. To do what? To produce, okay? So automatic. It is self-prompted. It's ready to go. Inherently disposed, needing no external force or persuasion to decide or to act. That's what that word means. So the soil produces crops by itself. The soil produces a harvest automatically. It's God's automation system. Okay, that's what I said at the very beginning of the lesson. Right? Principles are God's automation system. It does it by itself, right? So, why this matters is because it is a strikingly accurate picture of compound growth, right? Right. So once wisely planted, money invested continuously over time grows through a design that God has built into creation. The stock market came out of God's creation, okay? Everything that God put in place at the very beginning, man was able to take and build new things with, but you can't get rid of the underlying principles that made all those things, right? That's why it says that there's nothing new under the sun, okay? Because everything that God put in place is still in place and will always be in place. Even after this world goes away, everything that he put in place will still be in place, right? His word will always be here, right? So, we're going to look at 3 verses really fast. These 3 verses are how you need to internalize what your investment will be doing, because it does ebb, it does flow, right? There are moments where the market will go down, and there's moments where the market comes up, okay? So just because the market in that moment is going to go down does not mean that, oh, I made a mistake or I planted in the wrong field. Not all the time, right? Now, sometimes you did plant in the wrong field and you need to do an analysis and pull your money out of that and save your losses, okay? But for the most part, with the investment strategies we're going to go over this morning, the easy ones, and I've broken them up into 3 categories for everyone's ability and what they want to invest into. On the easy one, if the market goes down, don't worry. It has to go back up. Because if it doesn't go back up, the U.S. economy is literally in ruins, and you got bigger problems to deal with, okay? So, with that being said, we're going to look at 2 Corinthians 9:6. Really quick. I'm not going to extrapolate too much out of this. I'm just going to read these to get our mindsets into what this looks like for our investment portfolios, okay? 2 Corinthians 9:6. Remember this. A farmer who plants only a few seeds will get a small crop, but the one who plants generously will get a generous crop, okay? If you invest little, expect little. If you invest much, expect much. So right now, whenever you can only invest little, expect little return. But whenever you reinvest that little return, like I just said with that one apple, it'll turn into more and more and more and more and more. So even if you're investing a little bit right now, 10 years from now, that little investment that you started is going to grow into something to where now my investment is meaningful. And instead of making $100 a trade on this small amount, now I'm making $10,000 a trade, right? Because the percentage will always be the same. 10% of a dollar is only 10 pennies. But 10% of $1,000 is now what, 10 bucks? 10 bucks is a lot more than pennies. 10% of $100,000 is, what is that, $10,000, right? So the percentage of increase is still 10% each time, but the numerical value will grow as you do it. So as you get started, expect a little return. On it, expect it, okay? Don't be discouraged by the little returns, okay? As long as your return percentage is growing or is positive, keep doing it. Just keep doing it and keep doing it, okay? Now we're going to look at Galatians 6:9. Let us not lose heart in doing good, for in due time we will reap if we do not grow weary. Kind of just restating what I just said, right? Or I'm kind of restating what it just said because God's word comes first, right? So don't grow weary in doing good. Don't grow weary in continuous improvement in this area, okay? Because you will reap a reward, right? We're going to look at Proverbs 27, 23, and 24. Know well the condition of your flocks, and pay attention to your herds. For riches are not forever, nor does a crown endure all generations. Okay? So, this paints the picture of balance. Okay? There is a balance when it comes to the stock market. So, you don't want to neglect your investments. Okay? You want to make sure you're tending to the field properly, that your investments are growing in the proper direction. But you also don't want to uproot your seed every day to make sure it's growing. Because then what happens? Your seed dies. Okay, your seed will die if you look at it, pull it out of the dirt. Is it growing? Is it prosperous yet? It will die. Okay, so you want to make sure that you have a balanced dynamic in how often you look at it. Now, if you look at it just to look at it, that's fine. But if you look at it to like start making some moves and, oh, this was wrong, I need to sell this, move it over here, and then, oh, that was wrong, let me sell that, move it over here, you're not going to see growth, right? Because it needs to be in the dirt for it to grow, okay? If you're constantly moving it, it's not going to grow. With that being said, there are some plants that you do need to put in a small pot to get started, right? And then as you nurture it, once the sprout grows, then you can move it to a bigger field. Okay, you can move it to its mature location. Okay, because if you don't move it to the mature location, then you're actually going to stub out its growth in the small pot. Okay, but also if you put it in the large location, the open field, too early, then the winds might come and knock it over, or bugs might eat it or infest it and stuff like that. Right. So there are some, like, use wisdom in this. Right. Just because you start your seed in a small plot, or pot, really, don't let it stay there if it's that type of seed, okay? Now, some seed can just be spread into the open field, and that's where it prospers. But some seed needs to be placed in small, specific locations for you to actually get the greatest yield from that type of seed, okay? So, with that, practical application, I recommend setting either a weekly or a monthly, or if you worry a lot, a quarterly, just check in on your investments. Again, you don't want to do it on a daily basis if you're the type who you see, you're down on your investments, you're down like 2%, and you get scared and want to pull your money out. If you're that type, check it quarterly. Honestly, just set it to the side, let it do its thing, right? The crop is automatic, right? It does it by itself. So check it on a quarterly basis, okay? Especially if you stick to the easy plan, where we're gonna talk about, where you put it into an ETF or an index fund or something like that. If you do that, it will always continue to grow. It will always do it, right? Because if it does not continue to grow, the U.S. economy is in shambles and you got bigger problems to worry about, okay? So we're gonna quickly talk about diversification. We covered this in the earlier teachings on investing. So Ecclesiastes 11:2. It says, but divide your investments among many places, for you do not know what risks might lie ahead. Again, you don't want to only invest into one thing continuously. Whenever you get started out, it's okay to do that, right, on a small pot to make sure it's growing properly. But as you continue to grow your portfolio, make sure you're diversifying. Make sure you're diversifying because you don't know what stock might crash or might plummet, right? Right now, there's a huge bubble going on with AI, okay? A huge bubble. Right now, the last 6 months have been great for my portfolio, right? But I'm very cautious as earning reports come out from all these big AI companies because they're not making any money, okay? And if they're not making money, their stock prices cannot continue to go up, okay? So now it was a fun ride as it lasted, but it might not be lasting too much longer, okay? So make sure you diversify your portfolio because if you put 100% of your portfolio into AI stocks, you would have had a huge, 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 huge harvest currently. But it only takes the drop to happen, and all of a sudden you're down a crazy, 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 crazy amount. Okay? So make sure you're diversifying. And then we covered this last week, but I'm just going to cover it quickly here, just for the sake of the wholeness of this teaching, right? What the money is actually used for. 2 Corinthians 9, 10 through 11. Now he who supplies seed to the sower and bread for food will supply and multiply your seed for sowing and increase your harvest of your righteousness. So here, again, you can see your righteousness is linked to what you sow and how you sow, okay? And again, in the Christian walk, that means everything you sow. Your attitude, your devotion, your prayer time, right? Your walk with God, everything you sow. Don't neglect the sowing of your money, okay? Again, this is not a prosperity gospel. This is a holistic gospel, okay? Do not neglect the sowing of your money. Yes, 10% to the church, but also the 90% that God wants us to actually steward our money in, okay? So, you, verse 11, you will be enriched in everything for all liberality, which through us is producing thanksgiving to God. So, the reason that God grows what we invest isn't for our lifestyles to grow to match it. It's so our capacity for generosity grows, okay? And in that comes the growth of our righteousness, okay? So investing is not a detour from the tithes and offering subject we've been talking about. It is what funds more of the tithes and offerings that we've been talking about, okay? So, and now, again, don't get it twisted. You can still spend your money as you make your money. Ecclesiastes 5:19, we talked about it, last week. Furthermore, as for every man, did I put it on the board? I'm not sure if I put it on the board. But it says, furthermore, as for every man to whom God has given riches and wealth, he has also empowered him to eat from them and to receive his reward and rejoice in the labor. This is the gift from God. So again, you can still spend the money that you're making on the things that you want to spend the money on. Just make sure proportionally you're not spending more on yourself than on the other areas that God has requested us to spend and steward our finances, okay? So again, we all remember the budget from last week. What you can spend freely on yourself, 10%, okay? 10% of what you make. Everything else goes to all those other categories, okay? So now we're going to talk about I think I made good time, 11:17. Now we're going to talk about the actual, okay, this is how we invest, step by step. This is what we're doing, okay? So make sure you get your phones ready. Like I said at the beginning, I usually have main topics on the board, and then I have my bullet points here. On these ones, I put everything on the board. I want to make sure there's no confusion. No one's missing nothing on this, okay? This is what's going to take you from $0 in investing today to a year from now, even if you're only investing $1 a week, right? That $52 you're going to invest this next year will turn into, at minimum, $100, right? If you follow these steps. And that's just the way the market works, okay? So, zero to action. So we're going to talk about 3 different investment paths. There's going to be an easy path, a medium path, and a more advanced path. Whatever you feel like your level of engagement is in this area, do that, okay? I feel like I'm called to a more advanced level, which is why I've been doing this since I was 16, really, looking at it and researching and all that stuff. So, but not everyone's called to that, okay? Some people are called to be bakers. I can't stand baking, right? I'm not called to that. I'm not going to hold myself to that standard, right? But if God requested that all man make bread, then I would at the very least know how to make up some bread, okay? So since God has called us all to invest, at the very least, we should all know the basic level of investing, okay? So, number one, this is the easy path. This is the plant it and walk away. This is the Mark 4 we just talked about, where the crop produces its own harvest. Okay, this is the set it and forget it. Okay, so your time investment is going to be about five minutes a month, honestly. To get it set up might take an hour or two to get it set up to automate for you. But then once it's set up, it might take you 5 minutes a month, honestly. So what is it? This is the automatic reoccurring contributions into a broad market index fund or an ETF, which ETF stands for Exchange Traded Fund. Something like the S&P 500. You can also do these common tickets, the VOO, the SPY, the VTI, and do that inside either a Roth IRA or just a regular brokerage account. If you are fearful that you might need this money you're investing sooner rather than later, then start out with a regular investment account. That way you have access to it whenever you need. If you are able to set aside money that you don't need to touch right now, do a Roth IRA. If you don't know, a Roth IRA is it's a retirement account that you're able to set up for yourself apart from a business you're working in. And so what this does is you put your money in post-tax. So whatever money you've made from your job has already been taxed, okay? You take that post-tax money, you put it into a Roth IRA. As that Roth IRA grows, again, you can't touch it till you're 59 and a half or you get penalties. You can't take it out, but you do get penalized for it. As that grows, all the money you then pull out after your retirement age is not interest-free, it's tax-free. So all of the interest that you've made on it is now tax-free, okay? With that, and the reason why I know it's an amazing idea is because the government puts limits on it. If the government puts a limit on a thing you can do, just know that you should be doing it, okay? There is a limit on how much you can put into your Roth IRA each year. I believe I have it on a slide, so I'm not going to talk about it just now. Yeah, it does ask you on your taxes. So we will cover what your actual limits on a Roth IRA are once we get there. Some tools to look at on the next slide. These are some tools if you want it automated, okay? M1 Finance is really good. M1 Finance, they do have some free options. However, if you want to utilize the broader scope of that platform, it does cost a little money. But again, don't expect a great harvest if you're not expecting to sow a little bit, okay? The greatest tools out there are not free. And they're not free for a reason, because they're the greatest tools out there, okay? It's pretty cheap to go out and harvest your own field with, what do they call it, a scythe or a scythe or whatever. It's pretty cheap to buy one of those, right? But it's going to take you forever. It's pretty expensive to buy a harvester. They're like, what, $300,000, $400,000? But you're able to harvest in an afternoon, okay? So the level in which you invest into the platform will also dictate your level of investment and gain out of that platform, okay? So there are free options. Don't get me wrong. There are free options to get started. Don't stay in the free options, please. You will limit yourself. That's you staying in a small pot, okay, and not going to the field, okay? So there's M1 Finance. There's Fidelity or Schwab. You can set up automatic reoccurring investments in those. That is a free option, Fidelity and Schwab. That is 100% free. You can end up paying an advisor to watch over your Schwab account, but only if you choose to do so. With the tools that I'm about to give you guys, hopefully you guys won't need an advisor. You can be your own advisor, okay? The Holy Spirit can be your advisor, right? Through wisdom and guidance, all things, teach you all things, right? So action steps for this one. Do I have that on the board? Yep, action steps. So set up an automatic transfer into an S&P 500 index fund for the same day you get paid, okay? Treat it as though it's a bill. Treat it as though it's a bill. You are paying yourself. That's what you're doing. You're paying 10%, ideally 10%, to yourself. Set it up where it goes into it. The S&P 500 It's an index fund that houses the top 500 U.S. companies. Okay, so as the top 500 U.S. companies' stock prices grow, the S&P 500 grows. Now, as those companies rise and fall, the S&P 500 rises and falls, right? But you're guaranteed to make money year on year on year on year. In fact, the last 3 years, the average return from the S&P 500 was 22 to 25%, which is huge. If you had your savings in the S&P 500 instead of having it in a high yield savings account will only make you, at most, the good ones are like 3.5% a year. The S&P 500 was on the low end the last 3 years, 22%. Okay? So, that is the easy path. Okay? Just find an index fund, find a free tool that you can use to set up automatic payments, and then set up that automatic payment where as soon as you get paid from your job, it goes straight to that account to where you don't even touch it. It's just automatic. Okay? So it might take you a couple of hours to research what index fund you want to go into, what platform you actually want to use for your automatic trading. It might take you a little bit, but after that, month on month on month, you don't got to worry about it. You might decide to change your index fund a couple months or a year from now type of thing, right? But apart from that, you're now investing. You're now growing money, okay? So that's easy. Now we're going to talk about the medium path. The medium path. This is the study of the field. This is whenever you want to buy actual individual stocks or individual companies. So the time investment, this one will be a few hours a month researching, right? The more you research, the more you're going to get out of it. So this one is choosing individual companies or sector-specific ETFs to invest in based on actually studying the businesses, or if you're going into an ETF, the market, okay? Like they have ETFs just for natural resources, okay? So whenever the price of oil or gas goes up, the price of natural resources also goes up. Why? Because now it's more expensive to transport all of these resources around, okay? So in a market where you have a strait closed or where oil prices are on the rise, it would be very wise of you to then move some of your money into a resource ETF, right? Because it's guaranteed to go up because the price of transport has gone up. And if the price of transport has gone up, then the price of my goods that I'm selling you have gone up, okay? So that's so you either want to do individual stocks or sector-specific ETFs. Sectors, excuse me. Sectors is just like a part of the stock market, right? There's the technology sector, resource sector, transportation sector. It's just like overarching parts of the world and how the world functions and does commerce, okay? So the biblical anchor for this studying the field section, the medium section, is Proverbs 21:5. Good planning and hard work leads to prosperity, but hasty shortcuts leads to poverty, okay? So you want to make sure you are planning and doing the hard work of prosperity. It is Proverbs 21:5. It's on the bottom of the board right there. Proverbs 21:5. Yep. All right. So this is where, just for the sake of time, we're going to hit, well, oh my goodness, it's already 27. There are 6. What was that? I can send these. Yeah, I'll make a PDF and share the PDF. I'm going to go over, I think five or six. I think it's 6 red flags to watch out for with companies, on which companies you should avoid and which companies you should invest into. This is where you want to get your phone ready. For the sake of time, I might not cover everything on these slides, just for the sake of time. Or we might bleed into our prayer time, depending. Just depending. Because I do want to get through this so we can be done with finances for good on the discipleship class. So we might. I don't want to rush it too much, but we do only have 2 minutes. Okay. So number 1, these are the red flags to watch for and what they mean and how to check for them. Okay. Number 1, you can't explain how it makes money. If you cannot explain how a company actually makes money, do not invest into it, okay? Even if the price is through the roof right now, if you cannot explain in common English how that company makes money, you don't understand that business. If you don't understand that business, do not invest in that business, okay? Even if other people are investing in it, if you don't understand it, do not do it. Do not do it, okay? How to check for this. You want to read the business section of the company's 10K annual report. So what you do is you go on Google, you type in SEC Edgard. From there, you type in the company's name. A giant search bar will pop up on the screen. It's super easy. So you Google that. You hit the top link. I gave you the actual URL so you guys don't get confused on any other sponsored links or whatever that Google does, right? You click the link. There'll be a giant search bar. You type in 10-K annual report and then the name of that company. And then all the 10Ks for that company will pop up. You want to do a sort by the year or just look on the year. There's not a whole lot depending on the company. You just want to find the latest year's 10K report, okay? On there, it'll tell you exactly how and the frequency and the amount in which that company makes their money, okay? So if you look up Apple, you'll find that they've sold like $5 million this quarter or this month on iPhones. And you'll find that they sold $2 million worth of iPads, for instance, or they've sold $30 million of iTunes service or whatever, right? So it's how they've actually made money on paper with actual numerical values of their earnings, okay? On that 10K document, if you cannot figure out how they actually make money, don't invest into it, okay? Don't do it, okay? Number two, excessive debt relative to earnings, okay? So if a company has high debt, they're more susceptible to bankruptcy. If they're susceptible to bankruptcy, then the shareholders are going to end up losing their money if they invest into them, okay? Now, there are shareholder payoffs, but it will never equal what your actual share price ownership of that company was. It never will, right? It never will. So how to check for that? You want to look up a debt to equity or a debt to EBITDA, which is just earnings before interest. It's just what the company made before anything else came out of it, right? Your debt to how much you've actually made, like your gross income, right? That's free. You can look it up on Yahoo Finance. You can just type in whatever that company is, debt/EBITDA, and just pull up whatever the first couple links are. Like you can search that up, okay? But just make sure you know, before you invest in a company, what their debt looks like. You also want to look up other debts of other companies in that same sector, okay? Because maybe the debt they have, even if their debt's like 23% of their capital or whatever, if that's common for that sector, then it's not a red flag, okay? But if it's not common, if they're an outlier, then don't invest in that company. Just don't do it, because the longevity of your return on that might not be worth it. Number 3, revenue growth hype without profit, okay? So growth headlines can actually mask that a business isn't sustainable. Cough, cough, AI right now. Cough, cough, okay? They're not sustainable, okay? They've made no money so far, and they've invested hundreds of billions, okay? And they've made very little money back, okay? They're not profitable. I think AI is obviously the future. It obviously is the future, okay? However, kind of like the dot-com bubble, it's overinvested and underutilized. Everyone invested hundreds of millions of billions of dollars into the internet age. They were laying all these fiber optic wires. They were doing all this infrastructure changes for it. But the money return on the bubble was up here and it popped, okay? But the world kept building the infrastructure for it. And now what happened? Now Google is one of the top 5 companies, right? It took time to get back up there, okay? But if you were invested in the internet.com bubble of the early 2000s, you would have lost so much of your portfolio if you were in it whenever the bubble popped. But after that bubble popped and it came back down to reality, and then their earnings actually started making sense, if you invested early in Google, you would have been very well off, very well off, okay? So I personally, I'm not a financial advisor. Do not listen to anything I have to say. I personally will be investing in AI once the bubble pops, okay? Not right now, but as soon as that bubble pops, that is the future. That is where the world is going, okay? Right now it's overinflated. As soon as it becomes regular, like a regular company, like everything else, oh, I'm so in. I am so in, okay? Again, not a financial advisor. Not a financial advisor, everybody. I'm not a financial advisor, okay? I will not be sued today. Um, so heavy insider trading. Heavy insider trading. Why this matters. When executives who know the company best are selling their stocks of the company, it shows it's bleeding internally, okay? It is bleeding internally. How to check for this. In that same website that you're going to go to for the 10K, you're going to look for Form 4. If you hold a certain position in a company, whenever you sell stocks, you have to fill out a Form 4 document. You want to look at how many Form 4 documents is against that company and who's doing it, okay? Now, obviously, everyone is liquidating their assets occasionally here and there. So even Elon Musk has a Form 4 against his Tesla stock, okay? That doesn't mean he stops believing in Tesla. It just means that he needed that money for another investment somewhere else, okay? So just because there's a Form 4 does not mean red flag, red flag, red flag. Just follow the money. But if all of the executives at a company are filling out their Form 4s and it looks like they're about to abandon ship, that usually means A, they're about to be acquired, or B, the business is about to go under. And if they're about to be acquired, that could be a good opportunity, honestly. If they're about to go under, that's a really bad opportunity to get into, right? That's a bad field to plant into. So again, I'm not going to go too far into it. There's some sources on there. Make sure you snap a picture. There's some websites you can go to as well for insider trading information. The next one, no durable competition advantage. Okay, if they are competing in a market that is easy to compete into, then chances are, do I invest in this company or do I invest in one that is more likely to succeed the competition? Okay, again, the same thing. You want to go to that same website. On that 10K document that you guys looked up before you invest in any company, on that exact same 10K document, just do a Control F, type in competition, and there's a whole section that they legally have to fill out about what their competitors are, who their competitors are, what their competitors are doing, if their competitors have taken any action against them, like legal action. It all has to be documented in that 10K, okay? All of it. Now again, we also live in the world of AI, okay? So you can just download that 10K, throw it up into your favorite AI engine and be like, hey, tell me what's going on here, okay? But then double fact check it as well, right? There are AI hallucinations. And then into the last one, you don't want to chase hype. You don't want to chase momentum. Okay, these are those meme stocks. Have you ever heard the term meme stock? You don't want to chase those things. Okay. Now it is okay if, as long as you're not spending your like real investment portfolio, it is okay to invest into a couple of like meme stocks because on the short term you can make quite a bit of money. Okay. Whenever GameStop was going off in 2019, oh, I was in that. I was in there. You know what I mean? I was in there. I do not recommend. I don't recommend. What was it called? I stopped using it just for that reason. Robinhood. I stopped using Robinhood for that very reason because whenever it was at its highest, I wanted to get out. I was like, all right, I made my quick little 50% investment back, right? I want to get out. Okay. I could not get out. Robinhood didn't let me sell it because it was too high volatile. To me, that's a bad broker. I lost money on that because Robinhood did not let me out. So I could not recommend Robinhood enough. Okay, just don't use it. Just don't use it. All right. So now we're going to talk about some tools really fast. Should be on the next slide. This is for the medium level building your own stock portfolio, okay? So there are free stock screener AI assistant research tools like Zen Rating, Daniel Phi, Yahoo Finance. Again, your own AI assistant, okay? These are all tools you can use to help you determine what stocks, what businesses, what ETFs you want to get into, okay? One thing, you always want to verify the actual numbers from the SEC filing, from that /Edgar, right? You want to verify it yourself. Don't just trust the AI always, okay? Some action steps. Before buying any stock, write down in one sentence how that company makes money and why you believe that company will be profitable in 5 years or in a year if you only want to hold it short term, okay? Write down in a sentence. If you don't personally believe in that company and you don't personally know how that company makes money or how that ETF sector is going to make money in the next year, do not buy it. Regardless of what every other guru is saying, don't buy it because you don't have peace on the inside. Right? The Holy Spirit will guide you and teach you into all things. This is a thing. He will guide you into all things. The amount of times that I'm looking at something and I've bought in and we're riding it, dude. We're winning at this point. We can still continue winning, but something on the inside is like sell right now, sell right now. I'm like, it is like sell right now. And I'm like, all right, fine, I sold. I'm not even 2 seconds later. Okay, so listen to the Holy Spirit. Listen to the Holy Spirit, okay? If you don't have peace on the thing that you're doing, don't do it. Don't do it, okay? So, that is medium, and we are 10 minutes over. There is the advanced section, which is like day trading. Do you guys want me to continue right now, or do you want me to just come back next week? I know it's a lot of information. There's a lot of information. I don't think, if I come back next week, there's not going to be enough to fill out a whole hour. But if you guys got questions and stuff. Okay, that works for me. That's what I'm saying. Please show up on time. Ladies and gentlemen, please show up on time if you want the information. Okay. With that being said, I don't want to just like leave it. I'll open it up maybe 5 minutes for questions and answers. We can probably turn the live off though if you want to, Flora.